I'd like to start off this evening by allowing us to all just discuss with each other, put together as a group, as a family, what happened during these 2 weeks. We're on a spiritual path now. We're on a pilgrimage, a journey. And certainly these last 2 weeks were a part of the journey, were they not? And so if there were some wonderful things that happened for you during those 2 weeks, please tell us about them now. Just unmute yourself and step forward, please. Okay, I'll start. I have been, for the past few years, I've been having some pretty amazing spasms in my legs, muscular spasms that twist my legs up into knots, and it's pretty painful. And so they found that there's 4 areas in my vertebrae where the spinal cord was pinched down to only 15%. So they went into my cervical spine at the University of Washington Hospital and relieved those areas. And I want to tell you that I knew you were holding me in your heart. And the interesting thing is that when I came out of meditation or out of anesthesia, and historically, when I come out of anesthesia, I'm often singing, and so I kind of have a name for that. But it wasn't singing when I came out of anesthesia. When I came in the recovery room out of anesthesia, I was in the most delicious meditation I have ever been in my life. And I was completely clear of the anesthesia. So it wasn't like I was kind of stoned. I was very clear, but I was in, it's got to be that's how you feel after you die. In fact, I had a near-death experience, but I had some experiences during that experience, and all this was just pure, delightful, joyous, blissful meditation. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And then they took me to my room, and the nurse came in, and she said, "So I'm going to." Yes, I have an IV. She said, "So I'm going to put in some pain meds." And I said, "Whoa, wait a minute. I don't have any pain." And she said, "You don't have any pain?" I said, "I don't have any pain." And she said, "Well, sometimes the anesthesia that they give you takes a while for it to wear off." I said, "I don't feel like I have any anesthesia, but I just don't have any pain." She said, "Well, we have a lot of guys that come through, people that come through with this kind of surgery, and it's quite painful. In fact, the doctor told me before the surgery, he said, after the surgery, you're going to feel like you were hit in the back of the neck with a baseball bat." I had no pain. I had no pain. I was so happy. I was such a happy person. The nurses all wanted to come in and see me, and the doctors came in. And when the doctors came in and the nurses came in, they always said, "My God, you don't look like you're 81 years old. My God, you don't look like you're 81 years old. And you have no pain." For a while, I was a little bit flattered by that. But after a while, it bothered me because I saw it not so much as flattery, but as a judgment. And I began to say, no, this is what 81 years old looks like now. This is what 81 years old looks like. I'm not unusual. This is a normal 81-year-old look. But why don't you have any pain? And I said, I've got a lot of people praying for me and meditating for me. That's why I don't have any pain. So that's my story. So now I want to hear your story. What went on with you in these last 2 weeks? This thing's got to be easy or it doesn't work. I mean, the whole thing about spirituality is that it flows. It isn't pushed. So you take a big breath in, just a normal full breath, and hold it for three or so seconds, and then you just relax your body and just let it roll out, and let that stay out for at least twice as long, if not 3 times as long as the inhale. And for me, at least, and for some other people that I've worked with, it helps to get rid of that crazy jitteriness. jitteriness. And incidentally, you're being very kind when you say this is kind of a nutty time. This is the nuttiest of times. This is the nuttiest of times. We will go in stages. It isn't a continuum, but at the same time we have to be able to let go. It's very much, I think it's very much like going through school, and you get in the third grade and then you leave that and you go to the fourth grade. It's all school, but then you leave that and you go to the fifth grade. You just keep going to next stages. And then we get out of school and then we say, there, now I'm a graduate. Boom. We think that's where we stop. It isn't where we stop. That's where we begin. That's the beginning. Thank you very much for your sharing. Thank you. And I said, I don't do anything of myself. Everything I do is of Holy Spirit, is of Great Spirit, is of God. I do nothing of myself. And they said, yeah, but you channel that. You've been responsible for so many people that have been healed from terminal cancers, so-called terminal cancers and heart disease. So I don't understand it. And I said, you know the old story of the man in the flood on the roof of his house, and the rowboat comes and the speedboat comes and the helicopter comes, and then he doesn't take any of them because he says, God will save me. And then he goes to heaven because he dies because the flood takes him. And he says to God, you didn't save me. And God said, are you kidding me? I sent you a rowboat, sent you a speedboat, I sent you a helicopter. We have medical experts that are working, who have given up their whole lives to heal people, and they know things we don't know. So don't ever feel like, well, I couldn't do it on my own, so I had to go to a doctor. And so no, the doctors are part of God. The doctors and the hospitals are part of God. It's all part of Holy Spirit. Take the path that works for you. We have time for one more. Yes.
So
do you see how we're all connected?
We are.
Yeah. And so, we can wait until sometime late in January when we finish this course, and then we can say, wow, it just seems like we all are sort of, together and connected. Or we can just do that now. We don't have to wait till the end of January. We are a family, and we're connected. I tell you, I knew when I was in the hospital that you were there. I knew it. And you and I didn't come together in this course by accident. None of you that are here tonight are here by accident. You were called here. You were called here as I was. There is a great darkness falling over the world right now. And I could tell you the names of all of those darknesses, but I think you know most of them. I might know a couple you don't know, but I don't need to go there. But I'll tell you, there's no darkness. The darkness of the entire universe cannot obliterate the light of one candle. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness grasps it not. You and I are a light shining in this world. And here's the interesting thing. If I shine my light alone, then that's one light. If you shine your light alone, that's one light. If you shine your light with me, then I get the light of your light, and you get the light of my light, and we get the light of each other's light. And now we have the illumination of four, not two, but four lights. Then we get four lights, and that's like 16 lights, and 16 lights. It just keeps growing and growing exponentially. So those of us that are here together tonight, we are a team. We're warriors of the light, guerreros de la luz. We're warriors of the light. We come together now because we're needed, and over the next few weeks and months, we're going to be needed. And if you find yourself at any time falling into despair, into the darkness, because the isolation and the COVID stuff just feels overwhelming to you, if that happens to you, then you must give away some of yourself to someone else. You must call someone on the phone. Somebody, talk to somebody. Just listen to them. Just let them talk about their fears and their grief and their doubts, and constantly bless them and fill them with love. And then that will come into you, because that love, that power of grace does not flow from us, it flows through us. And it can't flow into us unless it's flowing out of us. So that's the job that we must do. I'll tell you something that I do. You're probably going to think this is really weird. But every once in a while, I take my phone and I just dial a number. I don't know the number. Like, I know that New York, one of the New York prefixes is 202. So I might start off with 202 and then just dial some numbers. And sometimes I get I'm sorry, this number is disconnected, or this is a wrong number. But eventually somebody will answer. I don't know who it is. And I say, hi, my name is Bob Trask. You don't know me, and I'm not trying to sell you anything. I called you just out of the blue, just picked a number out of the blue and called you because I was called to call you. And I just want you to know that I love you. I'm another member of the human race. I'm your brother out here. Somebody loves you, and it's me. It's me. I love you, and I bless you, and I'm sending you my love today. And I want you to have a wonderful day and a wonderful life. Okay, bye-bye. And I hang up. Now, I don't know whether that makes any difference, but interestingly enough, I was in a class and somebody said in the class, do it. We want to see you do it. So I picked up the phone and I dialed a number, and a guy answered. So I said what I don't know but I said about what I just said. And about 2 weeks later in that same class, one of the ladies in the class said, excuse me, my light just fell on. I've told you in this class about my stepfather and how monstrous he is, and that he's trying to take all of our money, and he's got us in court, and he's just like being monstrous. I talked to him the other day and he was almost crying. He said somebody called him on the phone and told him that they loved him and told him that he was blessed and that he was a good person. And he said, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I really apologize for everything I've done to you. I said, what was his phone number? Well, I don't remember the whole number, but the prefix was the same. So I suppose it was probably the same guy. So you don't know what you don't know. If you say something nice to someone, you don't know what it does to their life. You don't know, because it isn't you saying it. If it was just you saying to the checker in the grocery store, nice blouse, you look really nice today, that wouldn't mean much. But you're a vehicle of the Spirit. You're a vehicle of the light. And when you look into that person's eyes and send them love and say something, they get the impact of Holy Spirit. It's not just you. So we can't afford to not do that, can we? We need to be able to move forward. You know, in studying Joe's book, this is probably not in the book, but the body has 37.2 trillion cells. That's a number we can't even, there's no way to even imagine that number. That's, if you were to write those zeros out, they'd probably go all the way across Canada. 37.2 trillion cells in your body. And each one of those cells, this is interesting, each one of those cells has 46 DNA molecules, 46 of 37.2. So imagine then all of those incredible cells with 46 each. Do that multiplication and see how many DNA molecules you've got out there. Now, here's the real kicker. There's only about 20,000 genes. The genes come from the DNA, right? Here's what happens. You read that and you'll be reading it more. But this protein goes in and it enters the cell, goes inside the cell, hits the nucleus, goes in through the nucleus, goes into a DNA and unravels that DNA and creates a protein, and that protein goes back out and it starts making changes in your life, changes in your body. Happens from what? Happens from your diet, happens from your exercise, but it happens from your attitude. It happens from your thinking process. Now, I know these numbers are just stupefying, but think about this just for a minute. Just stay with me for a minute. 37.2 trillion cells with 46 DNA molecules in each one. That number is so astounding, you can't even contemplate it. And all of those DNA are putting together all of their information and all of their everything into 20,000 genes. Now here's another kick. Only 11,000, about 11,000 of those genes are active, are turned on. So look at the vast power, the incredible power that's going into each gene. The multiplicity, the combination, the variety that's going into each gene. Now, you have the ability to change those genes through epigenetics. You don't have to go with the genes. I mean, people say, well, I got rheumatoid arthritis, my family all had, so I have this tuberculosis because my family, my mom died. There's a lot of heart disease in the family. My mom died of a heart attack at the age of 46. She was my dearest friend and still is. She's my healing pal. My dad died at 52 of a heart attack. So that happened when I was 25. So when I got to the age of 46, I thought, wow, but I got past the age of 46. Then I came to 52 and I said, oh, wow. And then I got past that. And then now I'm saying this only five, my friends, only 5% of diseases are genetic. Scientifically, only 5% are genetic. And even those can be changed by you either turning on or turning off the genetics in that cell, in that gene. So we are free. We are free to make a difference in our lives. And I hope that you're going on Facebook and looking at my daily inspiration, because I write those for you. I write them there's hundreds of people that are just looking at those, but I'm thinking about you when I write those and when I video those every day. And what we're saying is that attitude. Just today, what I put in is that your attitude is everything, because what Joe Dispenza teaches us is that your thinking creates feelings. So I say, this wonderful thing happened. My son lost his foot and they wanted to cut it off. It was only hanging by his Achilles tendon. And I said, no. And they jammed it back together and put a cast on it. And then he moved his big toe. And then I think back about that. And I say, my God, that's a wonderful thing. What happens at that particular moment is that my attitude goes into high gear. My attitude really steps up. The breathing tube, that's the only thing. It was, my attitude steps up, my attitude opens up, and I become a part of the solution of my life and of the world's instead of another part of the problem. So a study was done in which 3,765 people at the age 60, 3,765 60-year-old people were put together in a study. And of course, they did all kinds of things. They wanted to know what kind of things would cause them to have dementia. They knew that out of 3,765, 60 years old, there are some people who are definitely going to end up with dementia, and they wanted to know who they were and how they got there. And so they were doing all these tests, weren't they? They were doing tests on their spines and their hearts and their minds and their brains and everything. The only thing that made the difference, and it made a big difference, more than 50% of the people who did not get dementia during their ensuing years were people who had a great attitude about aging. The other 50%, the ones that got dementia, had negative attitudes about aging. So your attitude about anything, your attitude is what makes a difference. And you can change your attitude by changing your thinking. And here's just one of the ways that you change your thinking. When I say you change your thinking, I don't mean change what you're thinking. Forget about changing what you're thinking. Because if you change what you're thinking, pretty soon you'll start thinking that again, because the platform from which that thought came is still there. The platform is your attitude. So to change your attitude, you have to change not what you're thinking, but how you're thinking. For an example, we've been taught for a long time that positive thinking is a good thing. But there's a fallacy in that. And that's that in this world, there are negatives and positives. And just like in a battery, if you have a negative and a positive, you have power. If you don't have a negative and a positive, then you don't have power. You see, you cannot have any positives in your life without negatives. You have to have negatives. So what are we doing when we're constantly shunning negatives and pushing away negatives and saying, oh, I got this damn sore throat. God, I just hate it when I get a sore throat. Hey, do I have a sore throat? Yes. If I have a sore throat, that's what is. You know what else is? God is. There's nothing that isn't God. Everything is God, including the sore throat. If I accept everything that comes my way, positive and negative, then I can deal with them. But I cannot deal with anything. I cannot change anything. I can't alter anything that I'm not accepting. So we need to be open to accepting all things, negative and positive, and looking at the things that I can change and accepting the things that I cannot and changing the things that I can. Those are the things that we must do. And to do that is to change the way I think. And if I change the way I think, then pretty soon I change my attitude, don't I? I change my attitude. So, you know that identical twins, you can have identical twins. Now, they've got pretty much the same DNA and genes and everything. They look alike, talk alike, walk alike, have the same ideas, the same inspirations, same everything. And then one gets adopted over here and one gets adopted over here. And they're raised differently. One of them becomes perhaps obese and maybe non-athletic and doesn't do all that well in school because of the family she's raised in and because of the influences around her and because what people teach her she is, rather than saying you're magnificent and marvelous, go be you. They're saying, no, you can't do that. No, you'll never amount to anything. And the other girl gets adopted into a family that does exactly the opposite. So she spends her teenage years becoming a champion ice skater. And then she goes on to get a college degree and ends up a professor in college or some wonderful thing. Same, identical twins, same genes, same DNA. Your life is your life and you can change it anytime you want, but you can't change your life until you change your thinking. You have to change your thinking. I want to ask you a couple of questions and I want to hear some response. What I just talked about, What did you learn when you read chapter 4? And did chapter 4 have an impact on you? Was it meaningful? Do you think it changed your thinking processes at all? Where are we right now regarding this book in chapter 4 and the things that I just mentioned? I'd like to hear from you, please. Boy, Barbara, I cannot tell you how glad I am you shared that. Because being an adrenaline junkie, which most of us are, and I can tell you, I can prove that we're mostly adrenaline junkies. All you have to do is go look at the best-selling movies.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be selling those movies if people weren't into adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
So many people, most of us, and we're taught to be adrenaline junkies because it makes us good buyers. It's easier to market us. And I want to tell you a quick story, and I don't like to talk too much about me, but I think this is pertinent. I was captain of a dive vessel, and I would take people out, and National Geographic divers and other divers out to different parts of the world, and then we would dive on sea mounts and tilt beds and different places. And I was driven. I was driven. I was absolutely an adrenaline junkie. And when I would go to bed at night, because I was the captain, I had a nice cabin off of the wheelhouse and on the upper deck. And when I'd go to bed at night, a lot of times I'd lay there and I'd have this anxiety going on. I just couldn't sleep. I just had this anxiety. And I remember that one night, about 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, I got up and went down on the main deck, and I put on my wetsuit and my weight belt and my fins, and I strapped on a tank. And the deck watch came by and said, "Captain, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to make a little dive." He said, "Well, wait a minute. I'll get somebody to go with you." I said, "No, I'll just go alone." Well, you know, it's not cool. You don't dive alone. But I needed to do this. I needed to look in the face of my fear and saying, "I got you, fear." So I'd had a flashlight, big underwater light. I jumped over the side, but I didn't turn the light on. I just let myself sink, and I sunk and sunk. And when I finally hit bottom, I turned my light on. Now I'm about 80 feet underwater, and I'm right beneath the boat, and I turned my light on. And I have never, in all my years at sea, seen so many sharks. All I see is these eyes, these glowing eyes of all these sharks. There's at least 3 different flavors of sharks out there. And so I just turned my light back off. And I swam over to the wall because there was a vertical wall going back up. I swam over to the wall and I turned my light on, and I went up the wall, feeling all the time that my back was wide open. Went up the wall, and I was looking in these cracks and reaching in and getting lobsters and stuffing them in my bag until I got up to the top, and I swam over to the boat and got out of the water. And then I took a shower and washed my gear and went back to bed. And I laid there and I thought, I must be almost insane. I really have to take a look at my life. It doesn't take great courage to do what I just did. That's not true. It did take great courage. I would be self-effacing if I didn't admit that it took great courage. But it's not a well-placed courage. It's not an intelligent courage. It's not the courage that if you happen to lose your life doing this, it's going to mean something valuable to the world. It was just you playing Batman. It was just, I really had to talk with myself. And then I started looking at what I was thinking and looking at what I was doing. Not too long after that, I learned to meditate, and my life began to change. But I know about being an adrenaline junkie. And I know how devastating that is and how devastating it can be. So a lot of people, if you really were to know the truth, if you were to really get the absolute truth from people, if you asked many, many people, what do you think? Do you think that this pandemic is going to kill millions of people in North America? What do you think? Some people would almost hope it would, not because they want people to die or because they're nasty or ugly people, but because they get charged by the awfulness of things. the awfulness of things charges them up, and they need that charge to feel like they're alive. I know, I've been there. I know that. Laurie, you're muted, hon.
Yeah. I just wondered if we do that to fill the emptiness we feel. So are we filling them with something like adrenaline or whatever to fill that emptiness?
That's a good thought. That's a good thought, because if we were filled with spirit and with joy and with an outpouring of grace and love, there wouldn't be much room for all that adrenaline. Thoughts, folks? Anybody? So the vast number of heritable genes, that means the genes that we inherit, we can turn off or on by our attitudes. We can turn them off or turn them on. When we're talking about adrenaline, adrenaline is one of those chemicals that we get addicted to, and so we turn those genes on that support that. There are other genes that support healing and kindness and love and creativity and genius and a curiosity. See, it all begins with curiosity, doesn't it? Like if you want to learn, like we put kids in a math class, and we're going to teach them algebra, for instance. And they don't want to learn algebra. They're not in the least bit interested in algebra. But what if we made them curious first? What if they had a curiosity, and a real curiosity, and we said, I can show you how to satisfy that curiosity. Look at this. Look at this. X equals 2. So 2 equals what? X. Wow, you're great. Look, then maybe you could actually do that, but we have to become curious. And most of us, as we get older, we lose our curiosity. That's why we stop growing. That's why we stop learning. And I'm really singing to the choir when I tell you that, because you're all in this class because you're curious, because you think that there's something more that you can do, that you can learn, something more that you can be, that you can have. And so you're wondering, and so your curiosity is pulling you along, and that's the gift of God. That's what brings us out of the darkness. That's what got us out of the caves. That's what helped us design the wheel and harness fire. That's what God helped Dr. Salk invent the polio vaccine. I mean, it's curiosity that pulls us forward. So we can't afford not to be curious. New thoughts, new choices, new actions, new behaviors.
Question.
Yes.
Is our opinion, is our natural predilection, I mean, the journey that we're on and the studying that we're doing is learning to break the mold and break the pattern and get out of the rut and choose love over fear. But is the attraction to fear because of the adrenaline that's attached to it?
In A Course in Miracles, as you well know, it says that love is the absence of fear and fear is the absence of love. I love Marianne Williamson. She's the big seller of Course in Miracles. I love her. I just think she's great. We were keynote speakers at an international INTA conference once, and I just think she's a marvelous person. But one of the things that she says in the Course in Miracles says that I still have a little bit of problem with is that love is the absence of fear. Okay. Because it's fear that keeps me from stepping in front of a Greyhound bus.
Sure.
And fear is a very normal, natural, and healthy thing. However, if I want to, I'm being very careful at what I'm saying, because I don't want it to sound like I'm putting down those people who take great risks for nothing else than to just satisfy their fears. Because I think they, like me swimming with the sharks and a lot of other crazy things that I did, I think those all have a part of growing you and making you strong and making you full and mature. But I think that the things that we're really afraid of, I think the things that we really fear, and I think Lori kind of said this, is that the things that really scare us, we don't want to look at. So we go fight other fears instead. For instance, the old story of a guy gets bullied at school or at work, and he comes home and kicks the dog. Well, he can kick the dog, but he can't kick the bully at school or at work. Well, we're afraid of death. We're terrified of dying. We don't want to get murdered. We don't want to die. Oh my God, that's so many of us are really afraid of death. And so instead of facing the fear of death and learning what death really is, and letting that fear motivate us forward so that we overcome that fear, excuse me, instead of doing that, we start taking on other fears. I think you might be right, and I think it might even be deeper than that. I think it might go back to our ancestors. You know, I think that we might be carrying forward sort of a paranoia, and that maybe that's just sort of wired into our genes. And if it's so, then what we can do is change that paranoia so that we have a different kind of energy coming out of us. One of the things that I do very much agree with Course in Miracles is that love and fear have a strong relationship with each other. And I think that if I face my fears with love, then I use the love energy in my fearful situation, and then I can do magnificent things. But if I don't have that love, and if I don't, excuse me, if I haven't harnessed how to express that love, then when fear comes along, I'm just in panic. Then it's fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're right, and I think that there's a real interesting thing that you're leaning on here, and that's that we can grow spiritually and mentally and emotionally, greatly grow, just greatly grow, if we're willing to face our fears and bring up an equal amount of love, and face those fears and go into those fears with the power of love, but not to pretend that fear isn't there. Oh, the fear isn't there because I'm a loving guy, therefore I don't have any fear. I can't get behind that.
But faith helps there, for sure.
Pardon?
Faith helps there.
Yeah.
You know, I even found myself today, you know, just everywhere I was going, I was, you know, because I was sort of living in a place of anxiety today, and it's like I'm going to be late and things are going to fuck up, and it's like, you know, but really there's a place of calmness that you can go there too, and just believe that, you know, things are going to be okay, and you're on the divine path, and, you know, I wasn't quite there today.
Practice that breathing that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I want you to go into a breakout room for a little while, say for about 5, 10, 15, 20, about 20, between 20 and 25 minutes in the breakout room. And I've got something really special that I want you to talk about. Unfortunately, we don't get an opportunity to really talk to each other. There's so many of us. And if we were in a regular classroom, we could do this a little differently. But I want you to go into breakout rooms, and I want you to, in the breakout rooms, what I want you to do is talk about yourself. Now, I want you to discuss the unique and individual callings that you have had, that you followed, or that you didn't follow. For instance, when you were a child, did you want to be a dancer, a singer, an actor, an author, a cowboy, a logger, a teacher, whatever, or maybe those are just titles of a thing. Maybe you didn't necessarily want to have a title, but you wanted to hike through woods for the rest of your life, or sail on the sea, or whatever things that you had. Those I'm stating hereby that those were genetic callings. It was part of the uniqueness of who you are. And if you would follow those, then they would have become empowered. If you have a calling to something and you look at it afar and you say, well, I don't know if I can do that. There's a lot of problems between here and there. But if you start stepping forward, the solutions start appearing. If you don't step forward, the solutions don't appear. So I'd like for you to talk about yourself and about what callings you had and what you followed, what you maybe didn't follow, and to say it's not too late now for you to still make your dreams come true. So I hope that's clear. I want you to take turns, make sure that everybody gets a chance to talk. Two things are going to happen. One, you're going to get a chance to express some things that you probably never really talked about. Secondly, people are going to get a chance to know you on a deeper level, and you're going to get a chance to know someone else on a deeper level. It's going to be a great experience.